Hello, my name's Claire Madge. I'm a senior lecturer in geography at the University of Leicester, and today I'm going to talk to you about online interviewing. There are two main types of online interview: synchronous online interviewing and asynchronous online interviewing. Synchronous online interviews resemble most closely the traditional interview in that they're conducted in real time. So these interviews use an internet chat room or conferencing software, and all participants, the researcher and participants, are online at the same time. So the interview is real time. In contrast, asynchronous interviews do not take place in real time. These interviews use, for example, emails or discussion boards or Listserv environment. An asynchronous interview usually involves the interviewer sending the questions to the respondents and the respondents answer at their own convenience. So neither party needs to be online at the same time. So there are two main types of online interview: synchronous interviews and asynchronous interviews. And today we're going to talk about asynchronous interviews. Now, asynchronous interviews, again, there are two main types of asynchronous interviews: individual interviews, which are usually conducted using email, or group interviews, which are conducted using a listserv or a discussion board. Email interviews are one of the most widely used internet-mediated methodologies. The interviewer sends the interviewees the questions either embedded within the email or as an attachment, a word attachment on the email, and the respondent fills in the email or the word attachment and sends it back to the interviewer in their own time. There are some advantages of email interviewing. The first one is that the interviewee can fill in the interview at their own convenience, and so it has high levels of respondent acceptability and quite high levels of feedback from respondents. Secondly, both the interviewer and the interviewee have time to consider their responses, and so a more reflexive interview situation can be the result. So email interviews can be quite useful if you're conducting sensitive research. Thirdly, because often email interviews involve repeated emails through quite a long time period. For example, one email may be sent and then a follow-up email may be sent several months later. And so this type of research tool is quite useful if you're conducting longitudinal research, because you can gain different responses through a time period. And lastly, because the interviewee is typing their response, you have a ready-made transcript, so this saves you both time and costs for transcription. A second main type of asynchronous interviewing is using group interviews, and these are usually conducted using either a listserv environment or through a discussion board, and I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. Firstly, using a listserv environment can be a very useful tool because all participants on the listserv are likely to be regular listserv users and to have a high degree of familiarity with the technology. Because the research is conducted asynchronously, there is no need to set up mutually convenient chat times. However, because it's not a real-time facility, respondents can post their reply at any time, and as such the facilitator can't play an active role in moderating the interview, and so this may limit certain types of research. And also this means that the level of group interaction is very much reduced and the sense of immediacy is reduced, so it may not be relevant for research in which you're trying to get group interaction. Additionally, because the type of interaction is less private than with email interviewing, because responses can be seen by everybody on the listserv, it may be that people are more guarded in the types of response that they give you. So that's the first type of asynchronous group interview that you can conduct. A second type is using a bulletin board, and you can post your questions on the bulletin board, and respondents post their responses on the same bulletin board back to you. And again, here responses can be seen by all bulletin board users, and so respondents are probably likely to be less candid than they might be in an email interview. However, though, this type of interview can be very useful for generating more lively discussions between respondents, because different respondents can see different posts from different groups of people, so you do get a better idea of group interaction or ranges of opinion on a topic. Okay, so that's three main types of asynchronous interview that I've talked about today. Asynchronous individual email interviews, asynchronous group interviews using Listserv environment, and asynchronous group interviews using a discussion board environment. Clearly, the choice of which interview you use will depend on the specific aims of your research. However, for all of these interview methods, you clearly have to consider the ethical issues involved, particularly at the research design stage. So, for example, there are questions that you will have to answer, including how are you going to inform your participants about the purpose, the methods, and the intended possible use of your research? How will you gain informed consent from your participants? How can you ensure that your participants can withdraw from the research at any point? What about the perceived privacy or expectations of privacy that the respondents have? And this is very important that you consider their expectations of privacy, not your expectations of their privacy. How are you going to discuss this with the community? What about issues of anonymity? How will you ensure that your research participants remain anonymous? But the flip side of this as well is, for some discussion boards and listserv environments, people may well want their words attributed. So you may also have to consider intellectual property rights. And lastly, how will you ensure against any harm to the research participants as a result, directly or indirectly, through your research? There are, of course, many other ethical issues that need consideration. These are just some ideas for you to think about. If you have any more questions about ethics, then do refer to our module on the website, the ethics module. And do refer to the AIR, the Association of Internet Researchers, guidelines for ethical research also. Thank you very much.